Hello and welcome to TRT World. Today, we mark the 10th anniversary of the failed July 15 coup attempt in Turkey and examine its lasting impact, with a special focus on the Balkans and the ongoing fight against the FETO terrorist organization. I'm Nadja Muftic, and this is Across the Balkans. Turkey marks the 10th anniversary of the failed July 15 coup attempt, a pivotal and tragic event that fundamentally reshaped the nation. As the country pauses to honor the 251 lives lost in defense of democracy, Ankara's global campaign against the FETO terrorist organization continues with full force. One of the most critical fronts in this ongoing battle remains the Balkans. Selin Eşençay reports.
July 15, 2016, a dark turning point in modern Turkish history. Rogue soldiers and military hardware were turned against ordinary citizens in an attempt to overthrow the government. This prompted millions to take to the streets. They responded to a historic late-night call to resist that would alter the nation's course forever.
Milletçe meydanlarda, havalimanında toplanalım ve bunların o azınlık grubu tanklarıyla, toplarıyla gelsinler, ne yapacaklarsa halka orada yapsınlar. Halkın gücünün üstünde bir güç ben tanımadım bugüne kadar.
The people responded immediately, flooding public squares and bravely standing defenseless against tanks to protect their country. Thanks to their bravery, the coup failed. However, the threat didn't stop at Turkey's borders. For decades, the FETO terrorist organization had used schools and cultural foundations as a front to expand deep into the Balkans. They established powerful networks in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Albania, North Macedonia, and Kosovo. A decade later, Ankara's persistent diplomatic and legal pressure is successfully dismantling that very terror network, earning crucial solidarity from regional leaders who recognize the threat.
U Srbiji nikada nećete imati one i u državnom rukovodstvu Republike Srbije koji će praviti paktove sa protivnicima legalno demokratski izabranih organa u Turskoj.
As the pressure mounted, FETO terrorist organization attempted to evade international sanctions through strategic deception, transferring the ownership of its schools on paper to shell companies in the US and the UK. However, that opacity eventually caught up with them. The terror network faced massive financial collapses, frozen bank accounts, and forced closures across the region due to unpaid debts and tax violations. In parallel, covert operations by Turkey's intelligence service MIT successfully brought high-ranking FETO fugitives back from the Balkans to face justice. To fill the vacuum and replace these compromised institutions, the Türkiye Marif Foundation stepped in, opening thousands of new state-backed schools, offering high-quality alternative education. Simultaneously, the Council of Higher Education has blacklisted universities linked to the terror group, ensuring their degrees are no longer recognized in Turkey. The message is clear: the old network is being systematically uprooted. 10 years after that fateful night, the Bosphorus Bridge proudly stands renamed as the July 15 Martyrs Bridge, a permanent symbol of national resilience. Turkey's focus remains absolute and unwavering, securing its long-term stability by ensuring the roots of this terror network are pulled out for good from the classrooms of the Balkans to the global stage. Selin Eşençay, Across the Balkans.
For more on this, I'm joined now by political analyst Aysegul Dogru. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to Across the Balkans.
Thank you, and also it's my pleasure to be here.
When and how did the FETO terrorist organization's network in the Balkans originate, and why did it target this specific region so early on and with such intensity?
Fethullah Terrorist Organization, in short, I will be using FETO terminology during the interview, began expanding into the Balkans in the early 90s, right after the Soviet Union collapsed and during the Yugoslav wars. The Balkans became FETÖ's first and the most important base outside Turkey. It started in Albania in 1992 with the Gülistan Education Foundation, presented as an education and civic charity. Following the success in Albania, the organization then repeated the same model based on schools, charities, businesses in Bosnia-Herzegovina, North Macedonia, Kosovo, and Romania through the 90s and 2000s. When we skip to the second part of the question, the Balkans actually was specified as a high priority target due to a unique intersection of political instability, social vulnerabilities, and long-term strategic advantages of weak governance, failing educational system, and religious and cultural ties and geopolitical proximity to Europe. Post-communist collapse and the Yugoslav wars left weak states in the region and open borders. FETÖ moved in as an helpful organized outsider, filling this gap. And simultaneously, local education systems were broken. Then FETÖ's modern, well-funded STEM schools looked like a lifeline to families. Through scholarships and prestige schooling, FETÖ recruited the children of politicians, judges, officials, and military officers, building loyal networks that later rose into the state institutions. Another factor is that the Balkans has an historic Muslim population with Ottoman Arab ties to Turkey. FETÖ presented itself as moderate and modern Islam, which appealed to both conservative families and secular families wanting Western-style schools. And geographically, the Balkans serves as the primary corridor to Western Europe. Building a secure ground there, the FETÖ later expands into Germany, UK, and the wider EU by means of its penetration to Balkans.
Did the organization initially infiltrate the region solely through education, or did it simultaneously utilize media and civil society channels as parallel tracks?
No, education was not the only tool in a sense. While elite schools and universities were the most visible anchor, FETÖ concurrently deployed media empires, business associations, and civil society front groups as multi-layered parallel tracks. The organization operated on a deliberate three-legged strategy. Firstly, education shaped future leaders, and media controlled public narrative and political discourse, and civil society and business networks secured the capital and somewhat access to local states, we may say in that way. And if we think about media track, as soon as schools opened, the organization launched media channels to shape public opinion, such as the group's main media apparatus in Turkey, the newspaper Zaman, was rapidly adapted into regional editions and across the Balkans, and they were printed in both Turkish and local languages. The organization also set up dedicated publishing companies to translate Gülen's books and essays in Bosnian, Albanian, Macedonian, and Romanian to spread the ideology among the students and intellectuals. And under the civil society track, dozens of NGOs, dormitories, and cultural dialogue centers were set up to bridge the gap between religious charity and secular bureaucracy, such as modeled on Turkey's Journalists and Writers Foundation, local branches as Tolerance Foundation in North Macedonia, Atmosphere Foundation in Kosovo held high-profile galas, international conferences, interfaith panels, pulling in mayors, prime ministers, religious leaders, and foreign ambassadors. building legitimacy for the group's regional presence. And alongside their sorry,
Yeah,
you wanted something?
I would like to add, can we speak a little bit about Turkish Marif Foundations? What is the current status of the Turkish Marif Foundations, takeover of these schools in the Balkans, and how is the vacuum being filled, particularly in Albania, Kosovo, and North Macedonia?
Yes, sure. Set up by the Turkish state in 2016 with one main job, take apart and take over FETO schools and assets worldwide. Turkish Marif Foundation is now Turkey's main tool for education diplomacy. Globally, it has closed or taken over hundreds of FETO-linked institutions, backed by a fast-growing state budget amounting nearly $195 million in 2026. Marif Foundation's overall strategy in the Balkans is putting legal and political pressure to force FETO schools to shut down or rapidly opening a large, heavily subsidized parallel school network to outcompete and absorb FETO's market share. In Albanian case, Albania was FETO's strongest base, so it is Marif's top priority. Since local law made it hard to simply seize private schools, Marif built a competing system instead, from kindergarten through primary school, secondary campuses, and up to the elite New York schools in Tehran. Marif bought the University of New York Tehran, capturing the top-tier university and directly undercutting FETO's flagship Epoka University. And in Kosovo, turning point was 2018 when 6 senior FETO-linked educators were deported in a joint Turkish-Kosovo intelligence operation. And after that, Marif moved in fast, operating international Marif schools of Kosovo in Pristina and Prizren. It targets the same demographic FETO once had, families wanting Western standard STEM education. And when we come to North Macedonia, old FETO schools, branded as Yahya Kemal colleges, try to survive by rebranding and bringing in local and Western partners to bypass Turkish sanctions. Since courts were slow to shut these rebranded schools, Marif used economic pressure instead. In December 2018, it opened a major campus in Skopje, later expanding to Tetovo. And with heavily discounted tuition, full scholarships, and top-tier STEM robotics facilities funded by Ankara, local private schools cannot compete financially with these schools.
What are the potential risks Balkan countries face if the FETO terrorist organization still operate in their countries? Could Balkan countries also see coup attempts?
If the FETO continues to maintain its operational capacity, recruitment pipelines, and commercial presence within the Western Balkans, host nations face complex domestic security, institutional, and geopolitical risks because the group functions as an opaque, multi-layered network rather than an overt militant movement. Its genders are structural, incremental, and designed to weaken local state autonomy over time. So the first potential risk is the deep infiltration and the parallel state architecture. The core methodology of the organization relies on long-term institutional subversion rather than external confrontation. By utilizing top-tier private schools, universities, and student dormitories, the group targets and trains the children of the local political, bureaucratic, judicial, and military elites. And over a 10 to 20-year horizon, these carefully indoctrinated individuals leak into sensitive positions within national intelligence agencies, ministries, and courts. A host Balkan nation risks developing a hidden secondary chain of commands where civil servants' ultimate loyalty belongs to a non-transparent, foreign-directed hierarchy rather than their own democratic constitution. And the other potential risk is economic subversion and illicit financial laundering. The organization requires a strong financial apparatus to fund its global survival and sustain its runaway operatives and protect its remaining leadership. Rebranded local businesses, real estate holdings, trade consultancies, and NGOs in the Balkans can be used to launder, mask, and move illicit funds across international borders. This exposes local fragile Balkan banking sector to international compliance penalties while fueling a localized shadow economy that operates completely outside of state taxation and regulations.
Thank you so much for being our guest in Across the Balkans, and thank you for your time. We continue our discussion from the perspective of a Balkan geopolitical analyst. Joining us now is Associate Professor Dr. Yahya Mulhasilovic. Welcome to Across the Balkans. It's a pleasure to have you here with us.
Thank you for having me.
How did the FETO terrorist organization first establish its presence in the Balkans, and why was the region so important to it?
Well, actually, FETO's presence in the region has begun in 1990s, especially after the dissolvement of former Yugoslavia, because during the Cold War period, majority of the Balkan countries were under the socialist rule. So the only capitalist country, actually two capitalist countries, were Greece and Turkey in the Balkans. But back then, Bulgaria, Romania, Yugoslavia, Albania were all socialist countries. And with the dissolution of Yugoslavia, actually a window of opportunity was open for various organizations, including FETO organization. And I believe they opened their first school at the end of the Bosnian War in the 1996 in Sarajevo. And in the beginning, it was not well known what kind of schools are those. They started spreading their network. So after Sarajevo, they started opening schools in various other Bosnian cities. And after Bosnia, they spread to other regional countries as well, such as Albania, such as Kosovo, and other countries. And they were especially present in the countries and in the regions of certain countries where there is a Muslim population, whether it is a Bosniak, Albanian, or Turkish population. So their schools were generally present in those areas. You would not see a lot of FETO schools in areas of the Balkans where the Orthodox Christian population or Catholic population are majority. And of course, in the beginning, it was not known what kind of schools those are. Everyone was considering those Turkish schools. And they were pretty secular schools. They were like gymnasiums here in the region. And when it comes to quality of education, they managed to position themselves as elite schools. So you would see a lot of kids of the politicians, of the influential and rich people going to those schools, because back then they were very popular. And after the culmination of crises between the Turkish government and the FETO organization in the early 2010s, they started feeling pressure here in the Balkans, and one by one their schools were closed. Of course, they still have their network present in the region and here in the Bosnia, but I would not say that they were strong as they used to be in the 1990s and the 2000s. So basically, the dissolution of Yugoslavia and an end of the Cold War has opened the space for the FETO to spread its network in the region.
Do people across the Balkans fully understand what the FETO terrorist organization is, or is there still a lack of awareness?
I believe there is still lack of awareness. So somehow it was failed to explain to people what kind of organization this is. A majority of the population in the Balkans still consider them to be a charity organization, still consider them to be educational foundations, religious organization, some kind of missionaries. So that is the common perception about that movement. And everyone in the region, more or less, was shocked when the failed coup attempt happened in Turkey, that they were behind this coup attempt. And that was shock to many people, because many people in the Balkans were not following the internal politics and the internal dynamics, and if you want, geopolitical dynamics behind the FETO movement. So a majority of the population were knowing them as pious, religious, missionary workers who were spreading the education and providing education. Of course, that education was never free, and it was not cheap. So they were schools as I told you, where elite and rich people were going because they were among the most expensive schools here in the Balkans. So, but they also, beside the schools, they had their charity networks. A lot of people's interaction with that movement was through those charity organizations. And everyone was, of course, shocked when the Turkish government actually explained to the world that movement, FETO movement, or FETO terrorist organization, was behind the failed coup attempt. And I believe that perception is slowly changing in the recent years, but still we have a lot of people who don't understand what actually is going on behind the scenes when it comes to this movement. And also, of course, they had their publishing activities. Their schools, their books were very popular here in the region. So you would see a lot of translation of the leaders' books of that movement. Fethullah Gülen, his books were very popular. Inside even some religious circles, you would see their books being published and sell. So they had some kind of marketing and the PR. And because of that, it was very hard to explain to people what kind of movement FETO movement was actually, let alone to explain to the people that there is a geopolitical background of basically where that movement was used by certain countries and the certain powers to control Turkey and to control, to basically manipulate and control Turkey's foreign policy influence in Central Asia, in the Balkans, and other parts of the world.
Professor, I heard that some of the people in Balkans and in Bosnia and Herzegovina as well, those people who doesn't have any kind of connection and that they are not aware about anything about FETO, they think that if the leader of the FETO terroristic organization is died, that the organization is stopped. How naive is that kind of thinking?
It's very naive. Those kind of organizations, they never stop. Okay, they don't have the leader now, he's dead, but they will find a leader, or they will have few leaders. That's also a possibility. Because it's not problem that to organize, to have a leader, to be a jamaat. We have a lot of jamaats in Turkey. We have a lot of jamaats here in the Balkans, across the Muslim world. But the problem is that they used to be jamaat, and now they are a terrorist organization, that they are strictly controlled and manipulated by certain powers which would like to subdue Turkey under their control. And that their leader was, for 3 decades, was overseas. He was not even in Turkey. And he was afraid to come back to Turkey because he probably knew what kind of organization he is leading. And of course, now they don't have a leader, but it's a time of question when they will find one. The very fact that they are for years in the United States is allowing United States to deeply infiltrate that organization and to keep using it against Turkey and the Muslim world. So that's a problem. And of course, they are very close society also, although they are acting internationally, but they are also a very close society, and they have their inner circles of whom even the majority of the members of that movement are not aware of. So that's a problem. So all those people who lead that movement, it's not transparent. So they can be manipulated easily because it is very closed inner circle, which is after all navigating how that organization is functioning.
Professor, what message is Turkey sending to countries that still allowed schools linked to the FETO terrorist organization to operate?
Well, Turkey is trying to basically to eliminate the damage that movement is creating. So what Turkey is trying to basically take that infrastructure and restructure it in an order that it serves Turkey's interests, but not working against Turkey's interests. And you have the third category of countries, such as Bosnia and some other Balkan countries, which don't have centralized power to basically give to the Turkey their infrastructure. And like here in Bosnia, no matter how strong politician is, because of the regulations and the laws and the limitation of power, since power is not centralized here in Bosnia, it is almost impossible to do anything about that movement. But Turkey, through its public diplomacy, I believe, is trying its best to spread the message and to basically inform people about that movement.
Professor, thank you so much for your time and for being our guest on Across the Balkans. Thank you for watching Across the Balkans. You can follow our stories on social media and TRT World's YouTube channel. That is all from the team for this week. I'm Nadja Muftic, and we hope to see you next time.